This is the thing that really irritates me about the Europeans. They screw themselves over. They bitch about it. Then they dial 911. Hello, Washington. Can you bail us the out? Because the Chinese don't have the capability. The Chinese do not have the military capability of launching an attack and sustaining it. What if Israel went to war with Iran? Probably a couple of weeks without setting one soldier's foot on Iranian soil.
Welcome back to my podcast, Colin.
Yeah, it's been a while.
4 of 4. Number 3 got taken down by the big pharma, but we still have that video, the first one we did, about comparing the whole COVID policies with the Third Reich.
Looks like big pharma doesn't like you smacking them down, and I don't know. You might have a chance of getting it through this time with Trump here cracking the whip on those people.
He's speaking a lot of sense. I mean, I agree with Americans for the Americans. Hopefully, I can still do business with America. I am for America.
Well, the thing is that if we don't take care of our own country first and make it stronger and wealthier, then we're not in a position to help anybody else unless we're healthy. I mean, I never had a poor man offer me a high-paying job. So if a country is economically stagnant, or if the wealth factor has been drained because of bad fiscal policy from the Democrats in the last 4 years, then all you're doing is digging a deeper financial hole for your country and its citizens by giving money away overseas stupidly. And that money's borrowed from China to give to other countries, but we're not benefiting from it, but we have to pay the tab. That's stupid. That's insane.
Although in America, it does seem like if you're poor, it's less likely you're going to move up to higher social strata, or you would not agree with that?
Don't agree at all. I grew up poor, and a lot of people I know grew up poor. And it's a country where anything's possible if you play by the rules, you get the right training or education, and if you work hard, you make the right contacts. There is no social strata that you have to break through. It's not like in Britain where you've got the lords and the ladies, and then you have the serfs, and you're pretty much preordained what your life is going to be like. In the European model, I mean, we're not like that. I mean, that's why people want to come here, because we have opportunities for people. And Elon Musk is a prime example. He came here from South Africa, had the freedom of maneuver to do what he wanted to do, and he put his mind into his task, and he's become extremely successful as a result. He could not have done that in South Africa.
So what was it like for you growing up if you have like a medical problem, you don't have insurance, and you have to how can you afford to develop your skills if you can barely afford to have a roof over your head, or you go bankrupt because a family member goes to hospital and you don't have coverage?
Well, there are safety nets. People have a misunderstanding about the American healthcare system. Yes, it is a ruthless, capitalist-driven operation, of course. It's for profits. But for people who don't have the income to afford health insurance, or people who don't have the ability to get health insurance, we have a program called Medicaid. Medicaid takes care of people like that, and they can get basic and rudimentary healthcare services, sometimes even beyond the rudimentary healthcare service. Then we have Medicare, which is something that people go into when you reach age 65, I believe, which is a government controlled healthcare system that you pay a premium into. It is insurance. You pay into it, and you have co-pays, and you also have prescription coverage options and other things like that. My mother's on it, for instance. So we do have healthcare options. The problem with our healthcare system isn't because people can't get healthcare. The problem is that people cannot get affordable healthcare because we have over 20 to 30 million illegals getting free healthcare, draining from the system to where citizens can't get access to it. So you're competing with the people who shouldn't even be here. Okay, my son calls it the lifeboat method. You've got a lifeboat that has room for 50 people, but you've got 5,000 people in the water. Okay, the people on the boat had tickets on the ship that sank. The people in the water were stowaways. Who do you keep in the lifeboat?
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you.
So the minute you start throwing money to take care of people who shouldn't be here in the first place, well, that's stupid. That's idiotic. Nobody, put it in a simple model that anyone can understand. You have a family, husband, wife, and 2 kids, maybe a dog. Okay. But let's say all of a sudden There's a knock on your door that says, well, we have 20 illegals or 20 people who don't have documentation, need a place to stay. We're pushing them into your house, and you have to support them at your expense. Well, everyone's going to starve eventually because no one's going to have enough money to pay for everybody's mouth to be fed. Okay. There's going to be contention. There's going to be stress. Okay. You have just taken one comfortable family with a decent income to take care of themselves and not forced them to inherit problems that shouldn't have even been there in the first place. And that's the problem my country has that Donald Trump is taking care of. He's getting them out. I mean, he's rooting them out tooth and nail. And they have to go. They have to go, not because of a lack of compassion, but because of common sense and fiscal responsibility. We can't support these people. We can't do it. Because 99% of these people coming across illegally are coming across illegally for a reason. They don't have any money. They don't have a marketable job skill. They don't have any way of earning a living. So that means that they're a taxpayer burden. Great Britain wouldn't do that. I mean, not when I was there. Now they're doing all kinds of stupid stuff. But no country in its right mind is going to import a tax burden. That is insane. That's stupid. That's like slashing your tires because you don't like the make and model of Goodyear. It doesn't make it's stupid. I mean, the illogic of it blows my head gasket. I cannot wrap my mind around the ignorant, idiotic, and pseudo complacent Democrat methodology of opening the border in violation of federal law, by the way, and their oaths of office. They should be in prison for it. But flooding the country with a bunch of people. And now we have people in my country who've been raped, murdered, human trafficked. The Biden administration law now, the count is, I have a video on this on my YouTube channel on the missing children. When I did the video, it was 324,000 missing kids. Now it's over 400,000 children who came across the border that they handed off to anybody with their hand raised. And now they can't find 400,000 missing kids. They can't find them. They don't know where they are. And they're in several Texas, California, a couple of localized areas with federal agency assistance. They have managed to save some of these kids from the sex trafficking industry and slave labor working in sweatshops. But the vast majority of these kids have disappeared. They're gone. They may never be found alive anyway. And that is what we are living with in this country. Thank you, Democrats.
Well, there's lots of crying progressive people right now.
Good.
This Marxist woke agenda is having a fit of tantrums right now anyway.
Well, good. Well, and they deserve it because they created the problems. They created the problems, then they lied about creating the problem, then they denied there was a problem, but when the problem rose up, they tried to blame somebody else. But they did it. They created the problem. And the people who created this problem are the very people. The Democrats really piss me off here, and I'll tell you why. They're talking about, well, the billionaires are siding with Trump because they want to have the tax breaks and they want to just subjugate the working class. That is so stupid because many of those millionaires and billionaires started out in the working class. And those tax breaks that Trump gave in 2017 is the reason why the economy was so great. Because when he gave 30, 40% tax breaks to those companies, that gave those companies the liquid financial capability of hiring more workers. And more workers means more taxpayers. But Democrats can't do basic math. So their argument falls flat because it's founded upon illogic. And if you're not a logical human being, you cannot survive in the real world. But Democrats don't live in the real world. I mean, right now, the Democratic National Committee just elected their new leader. And during the process, they had to debate on how many votes they were going to give to males, females, and non-binary transgenders or something. You can't even define man and woman, and you think that other genders should be on the ballot, and you think that we, the American people who have an IQ in 3 digits, are going to take you seriously? That's
this multiple gender stuff has to die a death, man, soon. It has to be banished from history.
Well, think about it this way. The Democrats keep bitching and they keep moaning and groaning and they keep challenging Trump's appointees and they keep challenging all these people when they have congressional hearings or senatorial hearings. They're challenging these people saying, so you're anti-COVID vaccine, you're anti-this, you're anti-that, so you're not following the science. And the one guy said, well, what are you talking about? Your party can't define what a woman is, and you're telling me we can't follow the science? So none of that. That's why I love debating liberals. In my see, liberalism in my country is different from liberalism in Europe. Okay, you know that. It means something different there. Liberalism in my country is basically a collective stupidity wrapped up in an agenda and an ideology that only works in their small world. And if they can't control that world, it falls apart. And they lost the election big time, a bigger landslide victory than in 2017 when Trump took the electoral vote, but not the popular vote. But he took the popular and the electoral vote this time around because the average person woke up one day and said, you know what? I'm paying twice what I used to for groceries. I'm paying 30, 40% more for gasoline. I can't even be sure my daughter is going to be safe in school in the restroom because some boy who identifies as a girl might go in there and rape her, which did happen several times. And I'm worried that my wife goes for a jog and some illegal alien is going to stab her to death and cut her head off, which happened. So the American people woke up and they said, we've had enough of this. And that's domestic problems. Now you look at the international issues. Look at the war in Ukraine when Putin decided. And the only reason Putin went into Ukraine was because he knew that the Biden administration would do nothing to stop him. The Biden administration was not going to put sanctions on Russia. They weren't going to allow NATO an interventionary capability, which legally they couldn't do anyway because Ukraine is not a part of NATO. But Biden was going to do nothing, which is exactly why you have the war in Ukraine, because if Donald Trump was still in there would have been no Putin activity because Putin knows that Trump would have put a clamp on his oil pipeline, his natural gas, and we would have still been supplying Europe, and we would have let Putin in on it if he traded his oil in dollars. Then you look at Syria. Syria wouldn't have happened. Okay. Then you look at the Gaza, Hamas, Hezbollah in the north. You look at the Houthis in Yemen. The war in Israel, October 7th, 2023, that would have never happened if Trump had been in office because Iran was bankrupt when Trump left office. But Biden let them sell their oil on the open market to make billions every month so they could fund their terrorist proxies. All of this is on Biden and the Democrats. Every single damn thing is on them. And they just hate the fact that it's coming to the forefront. So that's where we are. My nation's pissed off. They're fed up. They're done.
Organized chaos. Hopefully, it's ending, and yeah, let UK and America trade well. Hopefully, because our economy is almost dead right now, especially the IT market. It's just, I don't know. It's just.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look at it this way. I mean, look at the semiconductor market. Okay. Taiwan has the largest percentage, I think of like 50, 60% globally of the semiconductor market, right? Well, China wants that market because China doesn't create anything that it doesn't steal from somebody else. So they want to have that market. Semiconductors and microchips are Taiwan's life's blood, and China knows it. So they keep threatening and saber rattling that, oh, well, we're going to take back Taiwan. It's a breakaway province, this, that, and the other. They've never accepted the fact that it was an independent country, but they can't do it because the Chinese don't have the capability. The Chinese do not have the military capability of launching an attack and sustaining it. They can't do it, and they know they can't do it. And it gets worse for them if the Pacific Rim countries of the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization get involved. If the Aussies, the Thais, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the New Zealanders, everybody, us gets involved, China will never be able to take Taiwan and hold it. It'll just be a cemetery for them. And they don't have amphibious capability. They don't have a history. The Chinese military hasn't fought a war, a true war, since the Korean War, really. Okay, you're talking, 70 years ago. They haven't fought a major war, and even then they were sidelined in proxies with North Korea, supported by the Soviet Union. China does not have a legacy of waging successful warfare. They don't have a logistics pipeline that'll work, and they sure as hell don't have. They don't have any way of resupplying their troops if they were to land on Taiwanese soil. So, and they know it. That's why Xi Jinping has not done anything because he can't. So
I mean, it's hard
Trump
enough for
knows it.
Russia to maintain supply lines across a land border.
Yeah, really. Well, that gets exponentially more difficult when you have an ocean. Okay, when you've got the South China Sea and you got to cross that, the Straits of Taiwan, you've got to cross that to keep resupplying your troops. And that's even worse if there's a defense force on that island, stopping your military and inflicting casualties. But China didn't do any of this when Trump was in office the first time. Putin didn't do any of this. Iran couldn't do any of this with its terrorist proxies, and Trump was killing terrorists left and right. Soleimani popped his head up in Iraq, and once he got a cell phone signature on where he was, he drops a tomahawk on him. Cool, kill him. He was killing terrorists like I would spray for roaches. He destroyed ISIS. Okay, Trump killed all the right people, and the world took notice. Biden comes into office, reverses every single executive order, and the world's on fire. They see weakness and they smell it like a pack of wolves. The wolves don't attack the healthiest deer in the herd. They look for the weakest. They'll go for the weak link and take it out, which is why the ecosystem keeps maintaining itself because wolves will take out the unhealthy and the healthy can continue breeding. Well, dictators and despots do the same thing. They go after the weak because they know they can't take on the strong. And that's exactly what these dictators have done. They're trying to do. Xi Jinping's trying to do it. Putin has done it unsuccessfully. And Iran, of course, is they got hit by Israel really hard. In fact, right now, in my opinion, I have a video that I did last year, early last year. It's been a while. And my video was,
This is a
what
Forgotten History
if
special
Israel
report.
went to
On this
war with
episode, we
Iran?
will examine the possible
And it was my
responses Israel
hypothetical
and
strategic
perhaps other
scenario
nations may take if Iran decides
of
to
how
become
Israel could
openly,
win that war
actively,
in a
and
matter
even
of
militarily involved
probably a
in the
couple of
current
weeks.
war between Israel
Okay,
Really?
and Hezbollah.
without setting one soldier's
To
foot on
understand that
Iranian
this
soil.
hypothetical scenario is
And I put that video
and
out
is
there,
not the
and it got
official
well
policy of
received.
Israel,
In fact, I
United
think
States or
somebody
any other
emailed me
nation.
once and says, "Well, are you
This
talking with the
scenario is
Israeli
not
Defense
designed
Forces?" I
to
mean,
instigate
it
a
sounds like a
national
good plan. And I'm
agenda.
like,
It is
"No, I
simply
just
an
use common
option,
sense."
that may be
And
of
then one of my
personal
buddies
value
who's
to
in the
Israel.
IDF said, by the way, we saw that video. And they actually implemented what was in my video. So,
What?
yeah.
Because I thought Iran was like really, really hard with like all the underground bunkers for their planes and missiles, and it would be you'd have to use like nuclear bunker busting missiles to damage that stuff, and probably still not do it.
You could use bunker buster bombs, but you don't even have to do that. Israel's already hit some really good strategic stuff. First of all, their airborne early warning radar system is it's not working. Okay, they took out with ECMs and with pods. They took out the radar. In my plan for Israel to take out Iran using Saudi Arabia and the U.S. as allies is for the Israelis to make a secret deal with the Saudis to land and refuel their F-16s, F-15s, and F-35s in Saudi Arabia at a remote strip, and then refuel and then hit Iran from there, and then fly back, refuel, rearm, hit them again. And while a U.S. task force could be in the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean, hitting Iran from two sides. So you've got a three-prong attack. And the first thing that I suggested was take out their early warning airborne radar systems. Well, the Israelis did that. Okay, take out their airstrips, knock out their aircraft, and crater their runways. Okay, Israel did that. Okay, then drop mines and sink the ships in the harbor so that any ship transporting Iranian oil in violation of the United Nations embargo, you sink all those ships in the port and you block that port so it's unusable. Well, they haven't done that. The other thing that I suggested in my video was that you hit the you hit the palace, you target Ayatollah Khamenei and the entire head of state, every single bureaucrat in Tehran. You level that sucker because there are no civilians hanging around there. They're in the villages on the outskirts. You level the whole entire interior of Tehran. You kill the head of the snake, and then you drop leaflets and tell the Iranian military that now you are at the mercy of 70 million Iranians who are very pissed off at you. Maybe you should just consider changing your government and dropping your weapons and joining the coalition and have your country come into the community of nations in good standing. But that was my basic plan. And by the way, the other part of it was you hit every single oil refinery, you hit every single oil platform, you destroy every single method. If you've got a kid with a power drill in his backyard drilling for oil, you strike that. You destroy every single petroleum asset that they have. You destroy all of those. You've killed their defense mechanism. You've neutered their government. You've rendered their military useless because the Iranians aren't going to come attack anybody. Okay, you hit their missile sites. The radar control defense mechanism's already out of whack. I mean, within 6 months, Iran would be a third world nation surviving on foreign aid if they did that. And the Iranians know it. They're not totally stupid. I mean, the mullahs know that they cannot compete even with Israel. Do they really want to piss off the United States, let alone NATO? Because I can tell you right now, you would never have to put an American or NATO troop on Iranian soil. You destroy the infrastructure and let the Iranian civilians take charge and change their own government. And that would be a beautiful thing to see.
But how likely is that to happen? Because look at Saddam Hussein, we damaged him a lot, but yet he still maintained power until you went in with lock, stock, and barrel, ground forces.
Well, that was a different story because we were rooting out individuals. Here, we don't have to worry about rooting out individuals. Just destroy everything that makes the country work. Oil, gas, weapons, aircraft. Destroy the Air Force on the ground, which the Israelis are pretty much done. You destroy everything that's useful to keep the government in operation, and the country will starve on its own. It'll just die on the vine.
A country like Afghanistan, there's almost no infrastructure there, but they're still, the Islamic fundamentalists are still in power there.
Well, that's true, but Afghanistan isn't launching missiles into Israel, and they don't have a standing army to threaten their neighbors.
Well, taking out Iran would certainly help Ukraine because we get a lot of missiles from them bombing their territory.
Well, like I say, the Iranian contribution to the global war on terror was really hampered. Well, it was crushed under Trump the first time. This time, you will probably see history books being rewritten with regard to Iran. And I can assure you that, and I know this for a fact because I have people who work with these people, and I can assure you that by the end of this year, you will not recognize Iran as being what it was even last week. It's going to be a changed government. It's going to, and it has to be, because once you starve them of oil money and you destroy their infrastructure, the next step is creating a soup kitchen and a bread line, because they're not going to be able to move oil, but they can't move oil if they don't have the capacity to pump oil, and they can't refine oil. So they can't sell crude once you do follow my plan. And you follow my plan, Iran's dead. And the sad part is the Iranian people will suffer in the short term, but they will benefit greatly in the long term. And once the regime changes and you get the Islamic extremist out of government, then you can say, okay, the global community can then take investment money, go back into Iran, rebuild this stuff, and make Iran a partner in the global community. And you have to hunt down all the terrorist supporters and all these other people, but that's pretty much being done right now. But once you eradicate the Islamic extremism from the Iranian government, because I have a lot of Iranian friends in this country, and I have a couple of guys that travel back and forth periodically to Iran, and I can assure you that outside of somebody getting a government paycheck due to oil revenue, the average Iranian hates that government.
Yeah, we want the best for the Ukrainian people. I mean, we feel bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Iranian, and the tragedy is Iran is such a marvelous country with a marvelous treasured history. I mean, it's in the culture. I mean, I love Persian culture. I love it. And it's just a wonderful country in the right hands, but it's not in the right hands right now. And I can tell you right now, I can juxtapose that to Ukraine, because personally, I don't think Zelensky's done your country a damn bit of good for two reasons. First of all, he can't even tell us where the money went, although a lot of his buddies are living large in Switzerland buying chalets. And I think his mother bought a house in Egypt. But the other thing about Zelensky is that Zelensky is not a truly ingrained military leader. He doesn't have the mindset to be a military leader. He may be a decent politician for domestic purposes, but Zelensky is not the dude I would want giving orders to my unit if I were fighting against the Russians, because he doesn't have a fundamental grasp of military operations. Now, he has people there in Ukraine who do understand this stuff, but will he listen to them? And I would like to think he is. I would like to think that he's giving latitude to his field commanders, because a professional soldier, I'll give you this way. You don't go to a high school, jerk out a couple of guys who played basketball, and suddenly tell them to take that hill against a couple of hundred enemy soldiers. You have to be trained. You have to have the mindset. It's not just having the training. You have to have the proper mindset to want to kill, and kill effectively, kill efficiently, and kill as often as you can. Reload, kill more, and then make sure that the enemy has been eradicated before you move to the next objective. You've got to kill. You have to kill. People don't like hearing that. But guess what? It's a reality. You kill so you can survive. And if you're not willing to just kill radically and ruthlessly within reason, not civilians, which the Russians have done, they've killed a lot of Ukrainian civilians. And there has to be a penalty for that. So once Trump brokers a deal, an end of this war, I firmly believe that Ukraine is going to lose more territory as a result of the deal, unless Trump pulls a rabbit out of the hat, which he hasn't discussed yet. Okay, and this is, if I were Trump, this is what I would do. I would say, Vladimir, let's have a meeting. You and I and Zelensky, neutral territory. Let's meet in Switzerland. We'll talk about it. All three sit at the table. Okay, Vladimir, you're going to pull all your troops out of Ukraine, and you're going to give back the territory that you occupy right now. Zelensky, here's what you're going to do. You are going to give us an accounting of every single damned U.S. dollar from the taxpayers that went to your country. Show us what was spent on the military, what was paying off your pension plans isn't part of the process. and also, Vladimir Putin, we are going to lift sanctions on your country under certain conditions. You've already agreed to market your oil in U.S. dollars, which is a good thing because Putin sees what's coming. But if you want to continue supplying Russian oil to China, North Korea, we can live with that. Okay, we'll take care of supplying Europe. They're NATO countries. We'll take care of Ukraine as well. They don't have to depend upon you. We will supply all they need. We have the most oil and natural gas of any country in the world. We'll take care of it. Now, if you don't agree to these terms, then we are going to put sanctions on you so hard your ancestors will be screaming for mercy. And Putin knows that could happen as well. And Zelensky has to understand that if there's going to be a peace deal brokered, the war comes to an end. Zelensky is going to have to remove his draconian mandate, give the people another free election, remove the restrictions on media, radio, television, newspapers. He's going to have to walk away from power and let the people elect and choose a new leadership with a parliamentary system or whatever the hell they want that actually is open and transparent to the people. And I think if those conditions are laid on the table, I think both people would agree to those conditions.
Well, I feel like the conditions there are tough. They're very tough for young men. I know many young men, young in their 20s, that I've grown up with that are, it's very stressful for them. They're aging. But like, I'm sure they would rather have those conditions rather than some back Bucha situation where the Russians are walking about the streets doing whatever law they have in their desires. That would be truly terrifying. Yes, accounting is good. Of course, accounting. I mean, we deserve to know where all the money goes, but it's quite dangerous, I believe, to say, oh, this is pensions being paid off by this, for all these people here, or this person's mum's buying this property, unless you have the facts.
We have the records. I have the facts. I have the facts of the top 12 Ukrainians who have bought properties in Switzerland and throughout Europe. And where did the money come from? These were not wealthy men to begin with. But the money came into Ukraine.
I can't say I know the full facts, but yeah, this is stuff that Ukrainians hate. We hate corruption, and there is a corruption problem in Ukraine, but there is a corruption index chart, and there is making progress.
I think
It's
Zelensky's
always
doing.
a lot of times with Ukraine, it's the few people ruin it for everybody else.
I think Zelensky's doing the best he can. I think that he's outnumbered by some oligarchs, and I don't think he's prepared mentally. I don't think he's prepared in character. I just don't think he has the understanding of how to deal with these people on the type of terms that Trump does, or even Putin. Putin just kills people he disagrees with. I just don't see Zelensky cleaning up the mess without a lot of external help, and he's going to need external help. But that help should come from the Europeans. We've already given over $200 billion to Ukraine, and only $70 billion has been accounted for. $120 billion, $130 billion, where the hell did it go? Zelensky even admitted on American television he doesn't know where it went. Well, if you can't tell us where the money went with all the weapons we gave you, we're going to cut you off. Now, if the Europeans are so damned worried about Putin, let the Europeans pick up the tab for the rest, because the European Union in its entirety has only given about 100. We've given over 2. So we've done 100% more contribution than the Europeans have. And the Europeans are once again slipped into their default method of not paying their dues to NATO after Biden got into office. Trump is raising that to 5% GDP instead of 2%. And he's going to say, you don't want to pay it, we're not going to defend you. Fine. Personally, I think the U.S. should pull out of NATO. Screw that. Let the Europeans have their own European Union military force. We'll take care of ourselves. We don't need to take care of Europe. Screw that. And we need to pull. And I've got a new video coming up where I argue the point that the United States should pull out of the UN. We should abandon the UN, let that corrupt organization. And I've got the corruption listed. Trust me, it's going to blow minds. Get rid of the UN. Kick them into Brussels, send them to The Hague, send them to the Seine River. I don't give a shit where they send them. Just get them the hell out of New York. Take that building over and give it to veterans, and give some homeless veterans a place to stay. Once you get your illegal immigrants out of New York, turn it into a productive facility to help our veterans, guys like me, who are less fortunate than I am. And tell the UN, well, it's been a good 80 years, but it's time that you go our separate ways. You go do what you've got to do, because you don't even have UN peacekeeping capability without the United States or Great Britain. If a UN peacekeeping force is not under British or American command, there is no peacekeeping force. It's a collective grab ass of corruption. And when you see my video coming out soon about the UN and the corruption with regard to peacekeeping and all the underground deals they've done and the crimes they've committed, you're going to see why we need to get out of the UN. It's organized crime on a level that most people have no idea about.
So a lot of times these guys from corrupt countries, or they'll send their people there to talk to other people that they probably wouldn't have a chance to talk to. So what would you replace that with? These guys are not going to go on Zoom meetings and stuff like that to communicate or tone down their tough policies at home. So how would you replace the in-person meetings in the safe zone that the UN provides for facilitating those discussions?
Well, you mean through like Zelensky, Putin, and Trump?
No, I mean like some countries, obscure countries with dictators, they send their people to the UN. They meet some people from level-headed countries. They go back home. They're less ruthless. So that's good in some ways. So what would you replace that with if there's no safe space for those dictators to come and have their little socials?
No. I'm not saying replace it. I'm saying relocate it. Put it in Europe. Relocate it just without U.S. participation, because we're the highest financial contributor. And I have all the numbers broken down on the amounts of money given by various countries. We are the highest financial contributor to the United Nations budget. But the problem is that the United States, especially under Democrats, never has an effective say-so in how that money is being spent. And of the 5 members of the Permanent Security Council, which is France, Great Britain, Russia, U.S., and China, 2 of those countries are despotic, China and Russia, who can just veto anything that they want in the Security Council. Then you've got France, which is about as reliable as a drunk hooker. And then you've got Great Britain, which is falling into the gutter because of their stupid. That prime minister you have is a clown. Let me tell you something. This dude should have been lobotomized a long time ago. But I thought Boris Johnson was bad. This dude is anyway, I'm just glad I don't live in the United Socialist Kingdom, because that would just piss me off. I mean,
What don't you like about Keir Starmer?
I don't like the fact that he won't take a position. Where the hell is he on? Okay, I got another example for you. I have a video coming out on the grooming gangs. You know about them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got the documentation on a lot of good stuff coming out on that video. Now, where the hell was Parliament, and where the hell were the House of Lords, and these assholes? Where the hell were these people for like 20 years when that was going on? Because in the last decade, well, they were afraid of being called racist if they arrested some Pakistani who was raping.
They're afraid of
these
getting
young
lynched.
girls.
They're afraid of
Well,
getting lynched.
you know what? Well, if you go in there with enough firepower and overwhelming force, and you corral those guys, you flex cuff them, you throw them headfirst into a bus, and you throw them into a prison, and then you deport their collective asses, you don't have a problem. You see, this is the thing that really irritates me about the Europeans. They screw themselves over. They bitch about it. Then they dial 911. Hello, Washington. Can you bail us the fuck out? Okay, so we're supposed to correct European problems like 2 world wars. Oh, the Marshall Plan. Okay, we're supposed to help you correct your bad decisions. But it's hard for us with a Democrat administration because they're nothing but bad decisions. Okay, and the only solution I have is to detach ourselves militarily, politically, away from the European Union. Not Great Britain in particular, but the rest of Europe, screw them. Because Great Britain still has promise, but you're going to have to clean out that government. You got to clean out the idiots. You got to get rid of the sycophants. You have to get rid of those parasites. France is a lost cause. It always has been. They've never been good for anything but making wine and cheese. We don't need the French. The world doesn't need the French. What the hell has Macron done to help the French people? He couldn't even keep Notre Dame from being burned, for Christ's sake, and the riots and the killings by the Islamic extremists that he let in the country. And now you have a European situation, and the liberals, the extreme liberals, progressives in Europe, are bitching because Orban in Hungary built a security wall around his country to keep illegals out. Poland is getting ruthlessly effective at preventing illegal immigration of their country. But the liberals are like, well, you're not being humane. Well, let me tell you something. Here's my humanity. You cross my border with bad intent, I, for one, would personally have you walk through about a mile worth of minefield, crawl over 2 walls with a no man's land in between. I would have coaxial machine guns with automated searchlights and infrared to detect your movements. And then, if you survive all of that, there's a prison cell waiting for you with a deportation order. That's my way of taking care of problems. When I see a problem, I don't negotiate with it. I destroy it. That's the way I operate. That's my mindset. And I'm still walking around. A lot of guys out there aren't. Why? Because they did not adopt the required mentality to deal with a problem. And if you don't deal with problems, they metastasize. If you find a cancer cell, do you nurture it? Do you cajole it? Do you say, "Oh, hello, cancer cell"? Okay, no, you eradicate the cancer cell. You take care of the poison. You eradicate it. You kill it. You destroy it. Preventive maintenance is better than retaliatory action.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way I feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of dangerous people coming in through these borders, but a lot of these people, they're coming for economic reasons because they don't have any hope in the country they're from because they have a dictator or whatever you have. So how would you change the situation back home so they don't come?
Not my job. It's not my problem. If you want to have the situation in your country changed, then start a revolution. We did. We kicked the British out. Start a revolution, get a coalition of the willing, establish outside alliances to get weapons and whatever you need in, and run a coup d'etat like never before seen, and get rid of the government that's causing you pain and suffering. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Get over it, and then come to us and say, okay, thank you for the weapons, thank you for the bullets, beans, and the band-aids. Now we've wiped these people out who are corrupting our government and making us a pariah on the world stage. So now that we've gotten rid of these bad people, can you help us out? That's when you pick up the phone, dial Washington, and say, okay, we took care of the mullahs. Can you help us erect a better government? That's the way it works. And as far as this refugee bullshit, people in my country are relatively stupid. And I'll tell you why. Because the first thing they're going to say is, well, these people are refugees. They're coming in here for asylum. Well, no, they're not. Because if they were following the laws of the Hague Convention, which governs this very process, by the way, if they were following the rules of the Hague Convention, then what they would do is when they flee Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Stan, or wherever the hell they're coming from, as soon as they hit another country, that's when you apply for political asylum. And if you want to apply to the USA, then if you're stuck in Mexico, you go to the consulate and then you say, I want to apply for an immigration visa, work visa, HSB1, or whatever type of visa you want. And if you say you're fleeing persecution, then we investigate that. We check it out. And if your name's on a wanted hit list in Venezuela, okay, we'll vet you. And if you have no major criminal record in your country, you and your collective horde can come in and, oh, do you have a job skill? Oh, you're poor, you're a farmer. No, sorry, we're not going to take care of you on taxpayer money. It's not our job. We are not responsible to feed the damned world. If the world wants to shit in its own damn backyard, then let them clean it up. It's not our job to do it anymore. Okay? I don't care. I care about starving kids and people like that. But you know what? I've got starving kids in this country. I take care of my own first. And I'm not apologetic about that whatsoever. People want to call me a right-wing crazy guy. Well, that's fine. But guess what? This right-wing crazy guy eats pretty well, lives in a nice house on the beach, and I earned it. I'm here. And what are you going to contribute to my country if you come in? Get food stamps and live in a 4-star hotel at taxpayer expense and then possibly rob people on the street for pocket change? We don't need that in this country. We have enough criminals already here we're trying to get rid of. We don't need to import your dumbass. So as far as I'm concerned, you can stay in your country and die a miserable, withering death, or you can go to another country and apply the right way, go through the legal process, and if you fly, then you're good to go. But don't come into this country in the dead of night dragging some strange kid claiming this is my daughter when a DNA test will prove you're lying your ass off. You're going to traffic that child. Okay? Don't even play that game with me. And if I was the border czar, Holman's good. Tom Holman is very good, and I like that guy. I like him very much. But he's a little too soft for my likes. But then again, he has a political job to do. Me, I take the politics out of it. If you come crashing in my front door, you're going to get hit with more lead, okay, than you could ever imagine. Because when the police show up in my house, you don't need an ambulance. You just need a body bag. Yeah. If you come crashing into my country,
You're of NAM, right? Is it?
No, but I did other things. But if you come crashing into my home uninvited, then you're going to find out who your 6 best friends are, because that's how many people it takes to carry a casket. And if you have bad intent, and I know about it, we'll find you and we'll take care of you. But I love my country. I love my people. I love my family. And I don't care if you're a total stranger and you need help. I've done that. I've helped people. I've helped. I'm not a really wealthy guy, but I've done my share to help people. I've had guys who were homeless vets living under a bridge when I was living in Charleston. Once a week, I would go and get non-perishable canned goods and things of that and take it to them. That was the best I could do, because the government had abandoned them. You know, once you're done with your service, the government could give a shit less about you. Until Trump came in and revamped the VA system, which Biden screwed the hell up, by the way. He totally reneged on every single thing that Trump had done to help veterans. My son was a benefactor of that as well, because two-tour Afghan vet. So I look at the way these countries are operating politically, economically, and if you're a country with a leader who's stealing your own treasury and you don't throw him the hell out, then just live with the problem. Don't ask us to bail you out. Don't call us and say, oh, we're starving because Ayatollah Khamenei is taking $700 million a month and giving it to the terrorists to wage war on Israel, but we can't feed our kids. That's your problem. Okay? If you're too stupid to take a stand and organize. Yeah, it may cost you your life. If you're not willing to die for something, then don't bitch about something.
So I love the way you present like your grief. It's a lot of grief in America, and I can't express it because I'm not American, but I can sense why the outrage is there, and it's good to express it. You do say some things about Europe, like stuff that Europe and stuff like that, but there are people here that love America as well. So like,
So do I.
yeah,
I know a lot. I have a lot of European friends that think America's a great place. They've come here quite often. They visited me. They stayed years ago. They used to stay with me when they visited. And there are a lot of great European people, and there are some really great countries who are trying to do the right thing. But the European Union as a collective is a parasitic, self-destructive, cannibalistic organization. And the UK was the smartest country in the entire collective because you never gave up the British pound. You never gave up the pound. Okay, all the other countries trashed their currency and took the euro. Okay, but Britain maintained its autonomy with regard to its own banks and its own currency, which gave it a lot of flexibility on the global market, especially in dealing and trading with North America. And Britain is always, to me, Great Britain, despite its problems currently, and every country has its past. I mean, you had the empirical period of every European country at some point. But Great Britain, to me, has always been the best country in Europe, the best collection of countries in Europe, with Wales, even Northern Ireland, and Scotland, and England. But Great Britain, to me, has always been the strong man. They've been the people to stand up to Hitler. They stood up to the Kaiser. They stood up to everybody who would basically trash human rights as we know it in the last century. And yeah, they needed our help. But guess what? At least Britain went to war to start something for the right reason. We jumped in to help a little late. And even back then, France had the right mindset. But Britain is still the best. Great Britain is still the best country in Europe, in my opinion, for many reasons. But I do think that there's a lot of social change going on in Britain that's going to destroy your society. The society in Britain is dying. It's just like a sniper picking off a crowd of people at a bread line. Eventually the only thing left is going to be the bread, because I just don't see the socialist mindset in Britain, which has been infused with a lot of bad political decisions and mass immigration. The culture of Britain is changing into something that is becoming unrecognizable to those of us who lived there, okay, who understand British history. It's dying, and that's a great tragedy. If Britain goes the way of Egypt or Tunisia, then the world would be a much worse place if that happens.
the UK. I mean, we grew up really poor. We had social. My first 15 years of my life was social housing, which was good, and school and university was free for me. But we now just see this, and the stock market is an all-time high for many stocks, but the IT market, my industry, is people are just like white collar jobs being eradicated from outsourcing, importing people in just so that they can fill up all these investment banks with Indian people. I'm nothing against Indians, but it's it's just economics. It's just like shareholder value, but the locals, the British people, go working somewhere else, and there's no jobs in Marks and Spencers now. And it's just hard to get a forklift license. So it's just a big social problems we're having with this immigration. But then again, it's an aging population as well. So I don't know. Where do you find the workers to pay the pensions and the healthcare for this aging population as well? So it's just, we don't have some immigration.
Well, if you have proper, legal, vetted immigration, that's a good thing. Okay. The problem is, just like my country is even worse than yours right now. We're cleaning it up. But when you have large numbers of people brought in who have a specific job skill that you need, I see no problem with that as long as you balance that out. Don't just bring in people from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh to fill a job because you can pay them a lower wage. Okay? which is what happens in this country. I mean, our IT and our pharmaceutical companies, 90% of our drugs for big pharma are made in China and India, some in Turkey, places like that. We don't even make our own drugs, which is one of the most insanely stupid things I can imagine. That's like sticking your dick in a door jamb. Sooner or later, somebody's going to kick it shut. And if China stopped the pipeline of drugs to us in retaliation for anything, then we're pretty much screwed. We're starting at baseline zero and having to resurrect that pharmaceutical industry that started bailing out under Bill Clinton, by the way. But as far as
globalism and shareholder value, shareholders don't care about that. There's a separation between shareholders and employees. That's a big problem.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think you don't replace them with people from another country, you know.
Well, that's true. But then again, you could challenge that, and you could basically monitor that by having laws in place in individual countries. Let's say, for instance, in Great Britain and in America, if you have a big pharmaceutical company and you're making your drugs overseas to save money by using slave labor to make penicillin, for Christ's sake, okay? And rather than make it in Britain at about 2 pounds, 3 pounds a pill, you could make it for like 30 pennies in India or China, right? So therefore, you're saving money, but you're still going to charge the top pound for that drug when it comes back in. Just because you're making the drug cheaper doesn't mean you're going to lower the cost to consumers, because the globalists and the magnates want to make that profit. What I would suggest is that every single country, starting with mine and yours, is that you pass a law that says, okay, well, we're gonna put a mandatory cap on what you can charge people for this drug. We know what the manufacturing cost is overseas. So if you're going to pay 30, 40 pennies for a drug, you can charge 100 or pennies or a full pound for that drug in Britain, rather than 20 pounds for that drug in Britain. Okay, you could actually do that, but to do that means you have to go up against. In my country, we call it the deep state, and I have a video on the deep state. You have to go up against the deep state, and the deep state has all the politicians in their pocket. All the corporate lobbyists are throwing billions of dollars at these members of Congress, representatives and senators, to make sure they keep voting to keep these drugs at the price levels that they are, and also to minimize the effect of giving the public access to cheaper, more cost-effective medications. The liberals will lie to you all day long. Well, we've lowered the cost of this, that, and the other. No, they didn't. They didn't lower the cost. What they did was they limited access to it to keep the cost at a certain level.
I don't understand the lobbying system. It seems unfair. Like, why did American people put up with this money buys power thing?
Well, it should be illegal. Basically, it's legal bribery is what it is. You know the first three things Adolf Hitler did when he came to power in 1933, when he took the oath of office on January 30th, 1933. He eliminated the Communist Party. He made education 100% mandatory, and he made soliciting or lobbying politicians punishable by death.
Okay.
So he ended corruption, expanded education, and got rid of communism. Now, National Socialism, fascist style, was not exactly, well, it wasn't a much better system, but it was economically. The communists just couldn't compete with National Socialism with a moderately capitalist economy. But no, you have to put the brakes on that stuff. You have to tell people that, okay, pharmaceutical companies, you made $40 trillion last year globally, and you spent about $120 billion in your manufacturing cost. So here's what we're going to do. This may sound like a socialist move, maybe even a communist move, but the federal government we have an agency that is going to examine your books, and we are going to basically raise your taxes another 50% to help compensate and offset taking care of the poor working class people who can't afford your medications.
Good.
And they're going to kick and scream at that. But you know what? At some point in time, you have to make the hard choices. And if Big Pharma cannot absorb losing $15-20 trillion out of a $50-60 trillion budget, then maybe they need to find a new line of work.
Yeah, some people think a big pharma is that there's a lot of risk involved with new drugs. There's always I don't know percentages, but like a lot of the drugs fail and they go through millions and millions and millions of pounds of investments. So some of these new drugs, vaccines are good. They stop cancers and things like that, which I am for, like tested drugs against cancer and all this stuff, and rare cancers. But then again, we know what we had with this.
Well, they
COVID
already
stuff,
well, Nikos, they already get tax breaks on research and development. If they can show they spent $22 billion on various drugs that they're developing and the drugs don't work and they finally come up with one that does work, they can write that off as a business expense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's not like they're going to suffer for it. Research and development for drugs is very expensive, and I know that. I have a couple of friends of mine who actually work in the drug industry, where I get a lot of this inside information, by the way, which is pretty good.
I used to work in a pharmaceutical laboratory for some projects.
That's right, you did. That's right, you did. That's right, I remember that. But so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know for a fact that research and development is expensive, but you don't pass that expense on to the consumer. You take it in tax breaks, and the government realizes that you had to spend a lot of money to develop that drug, but you don't make the consumer pay for it.
Yeah,
I'll give you an example. Here's another example. Automobile manufacturers. They come up with a new car design, okay? And the car is revolutionary. It can go fast. It's safe in a crash. I mean, it's got multiple airbags. It's got Star Wars technology and all this other shit. And it costs them $200 million to develop the prototype. Then you start putting them on the assembly line, and you're cranking out 3,000 or 4,000 cars a month. So you're going to say to yourself, in order to get my money back, I have to charge $300,000 per car to make up the research and development cost. Well, you know right away that 99.9% of the people aren't going to buy that car. So what do? Let's say it's an electric vehicle. Then you have a corrupt government say, well, we're going to have an electric vehicle mandate. Now you have to buy that car. Why would the government do that? Because the government has a very vested financial interest in that company. Okay? Remember back in the 80s when General Motors and Ford, not Ford was okay, but General Motors had to get big bailouts because they went bankrupt. And yeah, they had to the federal government bailed out General Motors. Okay, and then they had to do it again when Obama was president. They had to give them some help. But if you run a business and that business is failing because you have a failed product or a product that's no longer viable, or you have an audience that has outgrown that product or they've moved on to something else, the government should not come in and make it mandatory to use taxpayer dollars to keep your company afloat. We shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
It's called free market. It's called free market capitalism, which is survival of the fittest. And if you cannot compete with the next guy selling the same product, then develop a new product. But don't expect the taxpayers to pay to get you out of the hole, which is what has been happening with banks, savings and loans, car manufacturers, airlines. Our government is so corrupt with the lobbyists from not just the big pharma, the American Medical Association. By the way, I have a new video coming out on John D. Rockefeller. You'll like that one. The American Medical Association, the American Bar Association, lawyers, the petroleum companies, automobile manufacturers, the American Medical Association. All these people have lobbyists that walk in with suitcases full of cash to have a meeting. Well, we'll contribute $2 million to your campaign if you help us get legislation passed that prevents competition from this arena. You know, well, as long as it's disclosed on paper, it's legal. The minute you don't disclose it, it becomes illegal. Well, I say screw
let's see
that.
if Trump does something about that. You know.
Well, first of all, the biggest thing that's going to kill that is term limits. He wants term limits this time around, and I think he'll have the numbers in the House and the Senate to get term limits passed. And if you do term limits and you give a member of the House of Representatives 3 terms at 2 years, 6 years, and you give a senator 2 terms at 6 years, 12 years, you give a mandatory moratorium on how much time they can serve and not get a pension when they leave. Okay, you no, if you don't have 20 years of federal service like me, 10, 12 years military, and I spend 8 years in Congress, okay, that's federal service. Or if I work for the Postal Service, okay, that's 20 years, I get my retirement, my government retirement, fine. No retirement, no benefits, nothing. You're a public servant, and if you're a public servant, you serve your terms. You can never run for reelection. You're done. You're out of here. Then the lobbyists have to start grooming a new batch of people. They don't have the same dinosaurs that have been there for decades. They're in their pocket. But then you tackle the lobbyists and you say, okay, unless you're an NGO, unless you are a nonprofit like the American Red Cross, which is a nonprofit on paper, but they make a lot of money. But if you're a corporate entity, a defense contractor, or if you're a big pharma or whatever, then lobbying is illegal now. You can't walk in and tell people you're going to contribute to their campaign if they vote a certain way. That's why they hate Trump. Trump never said that he would vote a certain way if some lobbying firm gave him money. He didn't need their money. He didn't take their money. That's why they hate him. He's not beholden to anybody. He owes no allegiances except to the people who elected him. That's what you have to do. You have to be ruthless. And then when those bastards get term limits, then pass a law that says if you are a sitting member of Congress in the House or the Senate, if you are sitting in office, you cannot have any shares in the stock market. You cannot be involved in any share trading on any company that's involved with getting approvals, mergers, or whatever in votes in the House and the Senate. If you own shares in Bayer, or the German Bayer, if you own shares in Bayer, and there's a committee sitting there determining how much they're going to do with regard to stopping a monopoly on aspirin, and the stock's going to be determined upon what that vote is, you can't be in that committee because you have shares in that company. So you end that by saying, the minute you take the oath of office, you have to divest yourself of every single stock that you have. Okay? You cannot trade on the stock market because you have inside information like Nancy Pelosi and her husband, Paul. Okay? People like that became multimillionaires playing the insider trading game. When it's illegal for someone like me to do it, but if you're sitting there in the House of Representatives and you have inside information on a merger, well, guess what? Do you think they're going to sit there and go, oh, these 3 companies are merging together to form a coalition? No one knows about it. Let me call my broker. So they go to the back room. Hey, this is me. Yeah, there's going to be a big merger in about 3 months. So I want you to divest this stock and I want you to put all these shares into this company here. Yeah, thanks. I'll cut you in. Bye. Hang up. That's called insider trading. And you cannot do that. So anyway, but they're doing it. And that's why it has to be altered. It has to be restructured. It has to be eradicated.
Very interesting stuff, man. Do you think that Trump has enough time in 4 years to do enough change that it won't be reversed if there's another interesting election?
Yes, it depends upon how hard the law is passed. If he keeps the House and the Senate in the midterm election, then he will be able to accomplish all of those factors. And once it's law, it would be very difficult for the people in this country to accept a Democrat establishment trying to reverse those laws that are actually going to benefit the public. So I don't see how he can fail.
Churn just seems this totally destructive churn of just putting in laws and then taking them off. It's like trying to grow a plant. You uproot the plant, put it in a new pot, and it's just going to kill the plant. It's just the wastage.
Well, the people sitting at the top of the food chain don't care about that because they're insulated. See, the very wealthy are insulated from bad political decisions because they are so wealthy that they can weather the storm. It's the people below their pay grade who have to suffer, and they don't care about that because if they did, they wouldn't make the decisions that they do.
So goes the history of the world.
Exactly. I mean, and the people walking around here who claim to be socialist Democrat reformers, well, think about this for a second. When was the last time anything resembling socialism worked? It always fails. Why? Because it can't compete with the free market. The free market will always dominate any socialist, communist, fascist mindset on the economic level. You cannot compete with a fluid, free market economy. You can't do it. It won't happen. So how do they justify their actions? Well, we have to have equality and equity and all this other shit. I'm like, well, equality comes through hard work, and equity is an illusory communist manifesto topic. No one guarantees you a thing. I don't have. You're not born to this country and guaranteed anything other than a right to live and a right to work and pursue the best opportunities you can for yourself. There's nothing in your birth certificate that says that I owe you a damn dime. Okay, so I don't want people, thinking that that the utopian socialist society is a good way to go. It never worked. And by the way, the people who are the revolutionaries are stupid. Because what's happened after every single major revolution and political upheaval? The Nazis did it, Mussolini did it, Stalin did it, Lenin started it. But once the revolution is won and the government changes hands, who are the first people to get eradicated? Well, the very revolutionary, useful idiots who helped the revolution succeed in the first place. Why? Because the leadership at the top of the revolution realized that the foot soldiers who helped them get where they are going to realize they were lied to.
Brown, yeah.
So they got to get rid of them. Then they get rid
Brown
of the
shirts.
revolutionaries. Yep, they get rid of the revolutionaries who helped them get there. Then they start indoctrinating the next generation. They rewrite the history, and then the people coming up in the third generation don't know the bad shit that happened, and they're thinking, "Oh, this is a really great thing. I'm starving, but so is everybody else. So we're all equal." Well, guess what? The people at the apex of that organization are living large and eating well. You never saw Lena Brezhnev standing in a bread line. So
you got
but Trump's going to change it. He's going to change it. It's going to be for the better because the people woke up, and the people have awakened, and that's why when this country is more solid in the next 3 or 4 years, we will be in a better position to help others. But right now, we have to help ourselves, and we cannot. And killing USAID was the best thing he could have done in the short term, and that was a beautiful maneuver. That was a great stroke of genius. And but we cannot do this anymore. We can't. And the European Union, like I say, my video is coming out soon on the UN, why we should get out of it and kick it over to Europe, and all these other issues that people don't want to address. They're uncomfortable. There are very disjointed mindsets that cannot coalesce into a coalition of the willing to get things done. It takes an outside thinker, and that's what Trump is. He's an outside thinker. He's bringing new thought process into it, and he's trying to do the right thing with the right people, which totally goes against the deep state, which is another video that I already have out. And I think that Europe's going to be okay in the long run, but short term, you're suffering, and you're suffering because of the idiots you people have in government. We just got rid of our idiots, but you people still have yours. So once you get rid of those morons that are polluting and basically living like parasites off your societies, you're going to be happier, healthier, wealthier, and then we can come to the table and talk business.
Cool. Well, Colin, thanks so much. You're sharp as ever, and we'll definitely be doing more podcasts. And hopefully YouTube doesn't take this one down as well, because they obviously don't like you for whatever reason. Sometimes
they don't like me very much at all.
Yeah, but my audience.
Well, they might not like you very much after this one later.
If they don't like me for having a guest on, lets them speak their mind, then they can go elsewhere for all I care. I'm not a fact checker, obsessed with my mantras. But appreciate your time, man, and we'll be in touch.
Not a problem, man. Talk to you later.
Ciao.